Everyone. My name is Mallory Wood, and I am the Marketing Manager at mStoner. I'm excited to welcome you to today's webinar, SEO, Finding a Best Practice Approach. So I want to do a really quick audio check to make sure that you can hear me loud and clear. So if a couple people wouldn't mind using the raise your hand feature, if the audio is coming through loud and clear, I would really appreciate that. And I'm going to just wait a second and see. Perfect. All right. Thank you for doing that. It sounds like you can all hear me, and that's a good thing. So I have 3 housekeeping items before I introduce our presenter and we get started. First of all, today's webinar is going to be recorded, and so let's assume the technology is going to work correctly. And within a couple days, you are going to receive an email with a link to view the recording in case you want to review any of the information we present today. And you can also share that link, of course, with your colleagues if they're unable to attend the webinar. We will be posting the recorded webinar on the mStoner blog and eduniverse.org later this week as well. Second, the hashtag for today's webinar is hashtag SEO Higher Ed. So I hope you will join me in the back channel if you are on Twitter. I would love to chat with you there while Mark is presenting. And finally, during the webinar, you can use the chat feature to ask questions. So we've saved about 5 to 10 minutes at the end for Q&A, and if we don't get to your question for any reason, Mark is going to follow up with an answer on the mStoner blog later this week. So you can also, of course, tweet questions to us with that hashtag SEO Higher Ed, and I will make sure that those questions are addressed and answered as well at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Mark Sheehy. In his 15 years as a writer and creative director, Mark has led message strategy and creative development on a wide variety of communication projects in the education sector, including award-winning websites for George School and Ball State University, and award-winning enrollment publications for the College of William and Mary. Mark leads mStoner's search engine optimization practice, which makes him the perfect presenter for today's webinar. And Mark, I'm going to turn this session over to you now. Let's get started.
Thank you, and thank you for all of you for joining us. I don't know that I've ever been the perfect presenter before, so this will be quite the experience. So our session today is SEO, Finding the Best Practice Approach, and this is basically an overview of the kinds of recommendations we've been making lately to our clients who are interested in doing like a baseline optimization of their sites to make sure that they're doing everything they can do to make it easy for them, for people to find them on the web, and then because this sorts of stuff affects internal search as well, that it makes it easier for their internal search tools to work. So I'll be covering a couple of things. I don't want to assume anybody knows anything in particular about this. It's a big group, so some basic definitions about what SEO is. We're going to walk through best practices for both on and off-page search engine optimization, and I will explain what those two things mean. We're going to have sort of a sidebar conversation about keywords, because that's sort of a thing into itself, although it applies to the best practices we'll talk about. And then we'll take your questions. So what is search engine optimization? It's basically the process of enhancing a site so that it rises in the overall organic search results. So, if somebody types in public interest law school, and you are a public interest law school, you want to be as high as possible in those organic search results, because 80% of the traffic on any given web search goes to the first 3 or 4 results in the organic search, and the lion's share of it goes to the first page of results. The enhancement that the optimization includes they're basically based on what search engine optimizers, and SEO applies to both the people who do search engine optimization and the process itself. Those enhancements are based on what we think we know about how search engines rank sites. And the reason I say about how we think we know is because the algorithms that Google and Bing, and those are the big players. Google has, by most counts, between 60 and 70% of the search traffic. Bing, the lion's share of the rest, and Bing drives Yahoo now. So Bing and Yahoo are effectively the same thing. They corner the market in the Pew Center's research on life and the internet. People self-report using Google 80% of the time. So, we'll be talking about Google a lot, but we say what we think we know is because Google and Bing, the algorithms they use to rank pages are proprietary. They're closely guarded secrets, and they are constantly changing. So, the way we figure out how to do this is we rely on the recommendations that Google and Bing present us themselves about how to best optimize a site for search. And then we try various techniques to see what kinds of things influence the ranking. So, what application of keywords, in addition to what Google or Bing is telling us, moves us up or down in the rankings, what application of off-site or off-page SEO, links from outside move us up or down in the rankings. And from that constant sort of testing, you figure out what best practices are. So how do search engines rank web pages? I think the first thing to keep in mind here is that search engines are in the business of delivering an audience to their paid advertising customers. So much the same way that CBS or HBO are going to try and keep an audience in front of a TV screen by providing quality programming and therefore thereby delivering that audience to their advertisers. Google delivers an audience to its advertisers by offering a quality search experience. They want you to be able to go in, plug in whatever search terms you're going to plug in, and get back results that you're looking for. And so they are, to the extent they can, they are going to rank pages the same way you would, by relevance and by authority. And by relevance, we mean, to what extent does this web page or this website have anything to do with what's the idea in my head when I'm plugging these keyword terms into the search bar? So, they're, in a gross fashion, kind of measuring the relevance of your search against the words that are used in the site that they deliver to you as a result. So, and so the use of keywords on a web page, in an attempt to influence that measure of relevance, is called on-page SEO. So it's the use of keywords on the actual site. Sites measure authority by a number of different criteria. Some of it is, the actual traffic to your site. So, how many people or how many unique users are showing up, how many repeat users are showing up, how long are they staying on site, how frequently is the site updated. Increasingly, it seems like, the presence of video and multimedia slideshows and stuff. So the more robust the content on your site is, the more it contributes to authority. But increasingly, the most important criteria search engines use to measure authority is sites that link back to you. And particularly anchor text, and we'll talk about anchor text a little bit later on, but it's, what is the language that other sites linking back to your site are using to describe the link? Because the search engines trust that description of what your site's about almost more than they trust your own description. So they want the audience, and a lot of and anybody who's heard about Google Plus sort of delivering, or Google delivering Google Plus comments and results as part of search now, it's an extension of this sort of, crowdsourcing the authority of a site. So, what do other people think of your site? That gives you authority. That's how that's measured. So relevance and authority. And one of the leading SEO firms, a place called SEO Moz, by their estimation, the on-page stuff, the keyword research, the keyword applications and things are really only about 15% now of Google's algorithm, and a good chunk of the remaining is the trust and authority of the links to your site based on the authority of the sites linking back to it. So, the sites linking back to you are being measured in authority the same way yours is. So the more authoritative the site's linking back to you, the more their juice sort of accrues to you. The overall number of links coming back to the site, and again, the anchor text. So if they're creating a hyperlink in, a text in their document, and that says public interest law school in that link, and it links back to your site, and you're a public interest law school, that's going to elevate in Google's eyes your relevance to the idea of being a public interest law school. So how do we influence all of this stuff? Well, what Google, and to a certain extent the other search engines tell you, is that the best way to raise your organic search results is to create a good site experience. That means a site that's easy to navigate, that has lots of rich content that's relevant to the user, to what the user is looking for, and that you are sort of describing that in words that the user would use to find your content. So, if you write and design for a quality user experience, the search engine results will follow. Now, having said that, Google and Bing do make basic recommendations for how to do sort of basic on-page SEO that's going to help, take care of that 15% or 20% relevance measure, and make sure that, as far as, the language on your site versus the language people are using, that you're facilitating how that happens. Now, search engines figure that out by using these bits of code called spiders or robots, or sometimes I've heard them called crawlers. And they're basically little bits of software that go out and find your site, and they're like very, very sort of obsessive visitors to your site. So, a particularly obsessive compulsive person who might go and click every single link on your site to see what content's behind it, and then click every link on that page to find out what content's behind it there. That's what these spiders are doing. They're basically going through every page on your site and inventorying what content is there, and that process is called indexing. And again, the robots work, they're particularly obsessive, particularly literal site visitors. They're going to check out every link they go to. They're also going to behave like users who are visually impaired, in the sense that they can't see, so they can't read content that is like in an image. They're not necessarily going to be able to see stuff that's embedded in Flash or see photographs or videos. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit about how you take advantage of sort of accessibility practices to improve your SEO. But basically, the goal of on-page SEO is to make it as easy as possible, both for your visitors to your site and for the spiders or robots that Google and Bing are using to index your site, to find and understand the content that's on your site. So the first way we do this is make sure that every single page on your site has a unique and accurate page title. Now, what's a page title? And I'll show you an image of something. Actually, I'll just go ahead and do this now. So here, had you searched Harvard University, this is what the result that Google would have given back to you. And the words Harvard University, they're underlined in purple and underlined, are the page title. So it's the page title is the first line of the search result. It's meant to briefly but accurately describe the content on the page. The typical convention is the name of page followed by the name of the institution. For instance, admission/Cabrini College. And they are the primary way that a user decides if your page is relevant to their search. So what's the title of your page? That's the first thing they're going to see in the results. And that's how they're going to decide whether or not what they're looking for is what you have to offer. And here you can see, if you click through in Harvard's site to the About Harvard section, you can see how this turns up at the top of the browser. So you have About Harvard, and then the pipe, and then Harvard University at the top of the browser window. I could not make a legible image of this, but if I opted to bookmark this page, About Harvard/Harvard University is what also appear in my bookmark folder. So I can quickly go back and look at my bookmark folder and find a link that was named in a relevant way. The next most important piece of on-page SEO is creating a unique and accurate meta description for each page on your site. Now, meta descriptions appear, and I'll show you another one in a second, but if you remember from Harvard, it's that little brief 150 or so words of characters of text that appear below the page title. And this is the only place that meta descriptions appear. So although they're embedded in the code of your page, they don't actually appear in the content of your site. And again, they briefly but accurately describe the content on the page. They can be a little bit salesy, but the basic idea here is to make it as clear as possible to the person searching for content that you want to be relevant to, what your site's about. And after the page title itself, this is the most important criteria that a Google user or a Bing user is going to use to determine whether or not your page is what they're looking for. One thing to keep in mind is that the meta description, sometimes even if you have a meta description included already in your page, if Google thinks that there's a piece of text within your site that's more relevant to the search, they'll sometimes excerpt content from within your site and use that instead of the meta description. But it's still really important to have these things written and in place on all of your pages. In here, you can see what the meta description is for Swarthmore College. So Swarthmore College, noted for its honors program, integrates ethical and social responsibility through its liberal arts and engineering curriculum. One of the things I like about this particular meta description is it lets you know very clearly that Swarthmore is a liberal arts college, and granted, most people are probably going to know that, but that there's a focus on ethical and social responsibility. They have a highly regarded honors program, and something that people often don't think of in the same breath as liberal arts is an engineering curriculum or an engineering program. So in 150 characters or so, Swarthmore has managed to give a really clear description about what makes their institution distinctive. And if the thing you want to do is make sure you've got similar descriptions throughout all the pages of your site, or at least the top level pages that are going to get a lot of traffic. So you don't want to repeat this particular meta description on your campus life landing page or your description of undergraduate research opportunities, or your page describing undergraduate research opportunities. You want similarly descriptive, similarly borderline salesy, compelling descriptions for at the top for all of your pages, so that if somebody is searching liberal arts undergraduate research opportunities and your page pops up higher in the rankings, that somebody can read your description and get a very clear sense of what's special about the things you're offering in the world of undergraduate research. The other thing that you want to do, and again, this goes back to just sort of writing well for the web anyway, but you want to write clear descriptive headlines and subheads. So good subheads are short and accurate. They basically function as an outline for the content on a page. One of the things we often tell our our clients when they're about writing for their web is, people read on the web much the same way they read on a newspaper. So they're going to scan the headlines and subheads to see what the big stories of the day are about, whether or not they want to read more deeply. So these headlines are basically facilitating the scanning process. They're also facilitating those robots or web crawlers indexing your site and trying to figure out what the content's about. They're going to see these subheads with keywords in them and make a determination about how relevant your site is to the searcher's keywords. And again, we're serving the user first, but not the search engine. And just so you can get a sense of a good example of this, this is Widener University's site, which just went live last week. They've still got the announcement at the top of the web page asking for your forbearance as they fix bugs and stuff. But you see, this is their Campus Life page. So Campus Life is a nice big page title, and then really clear subheads: clubs and organizations, speakers and events, sports and recreation, residence life, city life. So that they're an urban institution in Philadelphia. They want to make sure that they're talking about all of these things. The other thing this page is doing very well, and it helps both users and the spiders and crawlers that are indexing the site. They've got phrased hyperlinks. So again, clubs and organizations. There's a radio show, student government, community service. Just in that one paragraph. So that's letting both the user and the search engines know these are the other things that are going on in this section of the site. Community service describes the pages that's going to come next. This word, community service, that describes a URL that's basically, Widener/civic engagement, is something that's called the anchor text. So it's the words in the text that sort of have the link behind it. So that's what both Google and your reader interpret as being the meaning of that link and the meaning of the content behind it. So again, you want these keywords and subheads and hyperlinks to be using keywords as they make sense. But the idea is that you are facilitating your visitor's site experience first, and by doing that, you're going to be taking care of the lion's share of your SEO on-page work anyway. But the hyperlinks tell search engines what's on your site. They function kind of as mini subheads within the paragraph. And again, all of these work better if you use good anchor text. As we mentioned earlier, these search engines, the robots and crawlers they use, don't see very well. They work, they're working with a similar disability that somebody who can't see very well is, or somebody who's using a screen reader to read your site is. So the way you help both your vision impaired users and the search engines that are indexing your site is you, on all of your photographs, you use a really clear file name, and you want to use keywords in that file name if you can, but again, something that's short and descriptive that helps both the visitors and the search engines know what is on your site. The web crawlers are increasingly able to read PDFs that used not to be the case. One of the ways you help them find your PDF documents that are mounted on your site and know what's in them. Acrobat allows you to add metadata. If next time you open a PDF on your site and click properties on the file, there'll be a field that comes out that lets you alter the title, the author, add a description of the content and add keywords. That's going to help them, your PDFs get seen. So all of this, like good accessibility practices, good SEO practice. The same thing with your navigational links. So anytime you've got a link on your page, whether it's in your main topic navigation or if you've got, a widget calling attention to a capital campaign or an admission event, you want the text in that widget or in that navigational tab to be in HTML text rather than an image, because that's going to let the readers and the robots and your vision impaired users know what that link is. So otherwise you're going to be making it invisible if you're embedding links in a photograph or in a piece of art. Now, there are some other things to keep in mind for webmasters and web managers. You want to have, much the same way you want this for your users. For search engine optimization, you want a nice, intuitive, hierarchical site navigation. When you're putting together that navigation, you want a directory structure that's going to be similarly simple. And you want the names of the files in that directory structure to help you create brief, intelligible URLs. So you want the URL to, Swarthmore wants the URL to its Campus Life page to be swarthmore.edu/campuslife, not swarthmore.edu/392/263.php. You want something that is going to be immediately intelligible and memorable both to your user and to the robots that are crawling your site. You want to have one version of each page on your site if possible. If, for instance, you need to have a different URL for, say, the HTML version of your page, and then you want to create a print relevant or a printable version of a page that has a separate URL, you can use canonical links to tell Google which is sort of the lead or authoritative version of that page, and they'll only index one of them, so it's not confusing Google or it's sort of splitting the authority of those two different pages between each other. Another good thing to do is to submit XML sitemaps to Google and Bing. The other good thing to do is to make effective use of robot text and no-follow links. Robot text is basically a bit of software that sits on your server and tells search engines which pages on your site that you want them to read and which pages you don't want them to read, because sometimes there are things strictly for an internal audience that aren't behind a password, or for whatever reason you don't want included in the site index because you don't want them competing with the other pages in your site for search engine optimization. So you can create this text that tells Google and Bing not to index those pages. Similarly, especially if you have blogs on your site, or if you have other ways for people to comment on your site and to add their own content, including links, but you don't necessarily want Google or Bing to treat their comments or any links they might add as parts of your site, you can use what's called a no-follow link that tells Google not to follow those links because they're not an authoritative part of your site. The other thing we want to keep in mind in best practice SEO is for mobile. Google and Bing both have mobile-specific algorithms for mobile sites. One of the things you want to do is submit a mobile-specific XML sitemap. So if you have a desktop site and a mobile site, you want to make sure you submit both of those to Google and to Bing. You want to verify that your mobile site's being properly indexed by basically searching it on occasion, making sure that the pages that you want to turn up are being searched, and then letting Google and Bing know that if there's issues. And then the other thing you want to make sure you're doing, and this is something you should be doing anyway if you have both a mobile and a desktop version of your site, is you want to use user agent detection and redirection. So if somebody comes to your site via a mobile site, you don't want via a mobile phone, you don't want them to get to your desktop site and then have to find a link to the mobile version. You want your site to tell that they're coming from a mobile device and direct them immediately to the mobile version of the site. So that facility that you're providing your mobile user, you want is going to also tell the search engines, hey, there's a mobile site, you need to index this. So again, taking care of your user is going to take you a long way toward taking care of your search engine optimization. And now here we are at what's called off-page search engine optimization. It's like, how do we get those links back to our site that the search engines are treating with more and more authority about, how relevant my site is to a particular person's search. And the thing you want to do is create good content that travels and refers back to you. So, you want to make sure that basically any of particularly the top levels of pages on your site, but particularly any news or events or feature stories that you're posting on your site are easily shareable via RSS feeds or connections to social media. So it's very easy for somebody who finds a page they really like to share it to their Facebook page or to retweet it or to add it to their RSS feed. Another really good tactic is to have relevant members of your community blog, whether you've got sort of an off-site blog platform where current students blog about campus life experience or study abroad experience. All of that stuff is going to link back to your main site and add authority to or add authority to your page. Another good thing to do is particularly have your faculty or administrators either contribute to or comment on blogs on academic or higher ed blog sites. Anytime you post a story or a video or anything to your main site or to your YouTube channel, you want to make sure that you promote it via your other social media. So again, you're basically hitting all the channels, making sure that anybody can see this and that stuff can get shared and shared again, and is constantly linking back to your pages. Another good tactic to use, particularly if you are sending out a lot of electronic press releases and doing sort of like very personal kinds of marketing in the local media where your students come from, is make sure that any press release you put out or any other thing you distribute has a brief but compelling description of your institution at the footer that includes a link back. So if somebody just reposts this some way, there's a description of your institution with a link back to it that, tells people who you're about and tells the search engines who you're about and creates a link back to your site. And that should be at the bottom of any social media post, at the bottom of any press release, and any media placements you do. And then in any of that stuff, the press releases, social media posts, you want to be doing the same thing you're doing with the content on the main pages of your site. You want to be using hyperlinks with good anchor text in the body so that, you're using that anchor text description of, a post about, you want to post something to Facebook about your study abroad program. So, Swarthmore, so if you're Swarthmore and you're posting about your study abroad programs, you want the word Swarthmore study abroad programs used as a hyperlink in the text of your post. And then that link goes back to the study abroad program section of your site and tells the search engines, hey, I've got authority for this this phrase study abroad. And actually, we can go ahead and take a look at how some of that is being used now. I've been picking on Swarthmore a little bit so we can look at their Facebook page. And you can see they've got all of these links, all these stories that go back to the Swarthmore site. On their YouTube channel, I've got this clicked open, but I can click at Chef for a minute just so you can see. Anybody who's looked at a video on YouTube has probably noticed that there is this place to put descriptions, effectively a visible meta description of your video. And Swarthmore has done a very good job here of including links into different parts of their site relevant to the content of the video. Now, this particular video happens to be part of their engineering playlist. So good, Swarthmore is trying to make sure that everybody knows that they are a liberal arts school that has an engineering program. So they've got a playlist on their YouTube channel specific to engineering. This video is part of it. If you remember from that meta description, they're also talking about values and social responsibility. So you can see in this description that accompanies their video, they've got a link to their sustainability statement, the Scott Arboretum, which is a big piece of campus, their science center, a story about solar power, and one of their alums who's involved in sustainable engineering. So they've done a very good job of optimizing this video placement, for the things that they want their school to be known about, and they've linked back to relevant pages in their site. So this is a very good off-page SEO tactic. So, if you're not including links in the descriptions of your YouTube videos, you can start doing that right away and get some more bang from that. Now, a word about keywords. And this is probably not news to anybody, but so keywords are the words or phrases that you think your target audience is going to use to search for the information that you want to provide them. And there are two basic components of keywords as they apply to search engine optimization. One is using keywords in page titles and meta descriptions and subheads, as we've already talked about. And the other piece of this is researching what the best keywords to use. Now, going back to our understanding of search engine optimization, beginning with what the search engines tell us, Google refuses to offer any guidelines on the placement, diversity, or density of keywords. The only thing they will tell you is not to stuff your page full of them. And that goes back to an early practice among the less scrupulous search engine optimizers of, having pages just full of, say, if you're selling glow-in-the-dark golf balls, stuffing your page full of the phrase glow-in-the-dark golf balls, particularly if you've got, a white background with white text in it, so you don't even see all of these words, and you've just got thousands of iterations of glow-in-the-dark golf balls because you think that's going to raise you in their rankings. It doesn't. Google long ago started penalizing people who do that, but that's why a lot of this conversation about keyword usage gets a little squishy, is because the search engines don't want to be in the position of encouraging people to abuse the idea. And I think the best practice here is still to try to figure out, to the extent you can, the words your users are using to find the site. Use it once in the meta description. Use it once or twice in the subheads that you're using to break up content on your site. Maybe use a synonym or two in the running copy, but basically remind yourself that you're writing for the user. And if you're writing well for the user anyway, you're going to be doing a lot of this stuff in the first place. So, after making that recommendation to write for the user, then Google refers you to Google AdWords, which is their pay-per-click ad campaign. But the good thing about that is Google has something that's called a keyword tool that's meant for their pay-per-click clients to help them figure out which words are the best words to pay for when they're paying for clicks. And that tool will let you plug in a bunch of different search terms before you pay for anything. And it's one of the reasons we're using Google, is because you can use this tool before you pay for anything. And it will tell you how often a word has been searched in a month, and it will tell you its relative competitiveness. Now, this is how competitiveness here means how many other sites are paying for that word as part of a pay-per-click campaign. But it also gives you, even if you're not doing pay-per-click, it'll give you a general sense of, how many other sites are being optimized for those same words, or how likely it is that you're going to, if you use those words, you're going to get to the top. The trick is to find a sweet spot between the terms that are searched a lot, but the ones that are not that competitive. So, if it's a really popular term, but 6,000 people have already optimized their sites for it, the likelihood that you're going to be able to crack the top of the rankings is actually pretty low. So you want to find somewhere on that tail of words that people are searching maybe a little bit less, but enough, or that are being searched a lot, but a lot of other people aren't using, and in thinking about those words as far as words to optimize your site. So we can take a look at what the keyword tool looks like. Now, this is Google's keyword tool, and it's part of their AdWords function. So if you go to google.com/AdWords, it'll take you to a landing page that will let you choose this off the tools and analysis section. And the only thing you need to access this is a Google account. So if you've got a Gmail account or are using Google Docs, that gives you access to this tool. You don't have to pay for anything. Now, I did it, just in case our connection was slow, I did a pre-search just so we can look at some results. And here I did, assume an institution wanted to promote online degrees or, online courses. So I put in a couple of different variations on those words. So online degrees, online education, distance learning, distance courses. And you can see here there are filters you can use. One that's based by location. I've got it set broadly to the United States. English, and then desktops and laptops. This will also let you choose mobile devices. It won't let you choose both. That flummoxes me, but I don't know anything to do about it. But there are a couple things to notice here. Whoops. First is you can see how many searches each of these words gets. So distance learning and online degrees both get well over 1 million searches. Online degrees itself gets about 823 searches, 823,000 searches any month. Distance courses gets 246,000 searches every month. And you'll notice, and this is probably because, there are lots of institutions, in no small part, some aggressive for-profit institutions that are already optimizing their, paying for these words. The competition for these are very high, with the exception of distance learning. And why, one of the reasons I noticed this is I was also sort of comparing local searches to global searches. And you'll notice that there's a much higher percentage of people searching distance learning worldwide than there are in the United States, which tells me that there's a pretty good international market for people searching distance learning. So if I'm an institution that wants to promote my online courses, and particularly if I want to get, if I want to promote those to an international audience, that this phrase is getting a fairly good high international traffic and is only sort of at a medium competitiveness compared to all of the other iterations of this word. Makes me think, okay, I'm going to choose this to optimize the page that talks about online learning rather than online degrees, rather than one of these other words. And that doesn't mean you can't use some of these synonyms in running copy, but in my page title, in my meta descriptions, in my my page head, and in maybe in some of my subheads, I'm going to focus on using distance learning or distance learning degrees or distance learning courses as a way, is the word I'm going to use to optimize that page of my site. And the other thing I want you to notice about this is that Google also provides you with keyword ideas. And here they've grouped the ideas. They've got this new tab here that they're beta testing where they group keywords together. So, for instance, online education degree, it gives you these different iterations of how that word might often get searched. It tells you, again, the number of searches, how competitive it is. So as you're trying to find options, as you're trying to compile a list of keywords to even consider, this is a good tool to use. You can plug a couple of ideas into Google, and in addition to telling you, how competitive and how often searched that term is, it will give you suggestions for different terms to consider. And again, you can just go to google.com/AdWords, click on Tools and Analysis, and the keyword tool is right there. And all you need is a Google account to access it. I'm going to suggest another couple things to keep in mind for doing your keyword research, and then we'll take questions. Another good place to look for keyword ideas is to go through your Google Analytics and see what words people are already using to find different pages of your site. Another good thing to do is just, as you compile your list, search those terms and see what else comes up. Do your competitors come up? One of the things that often that you're going to find yourself competing with is College Prowler and U.S. News World Report and other, depending on the keywords you're using, you're going to wind up finding college guides that are, also trying to get traffic to, so they can tell students where they think they should go. But, so search the terms that you're thinking of optimizing your search for. There are other fee-based tools that let you analyze the keywords that your competitors have been using to optimize their sites. I can post a link to a couple of them after the session if folks show enough interest. But I think if you're already using Google Keywords, the Google Keyword tool, if you're using your site analytics, if you're Googling the terms you're considering, that you're already doing the lion's share of what you can do here. The other thing to keep in mind is, we often ask when we're doing intake on a project, one of the things we'll talk to students about is, okay, when you were doing your college search, what were you searching? And most of them, a lot of them, heard about a school by word of mouth, whether from a college counselor or from U.S. News World Report, or they got your view book in the mail. So often they're searching your name, which your site's already going to be optimized for. Oftentimes they're searching for a major or a program, or particularly if they're trying to, they want to play football and still study biology, or they want to study biology and go be a pre-med major but still play football. They might be Googling a combination of degree and an extracurricular interest, particularly grad students who are geography, particularly working grad students who might be geography bound, might be searching, MBAs in Chicago or best law schools in the Midwest. Less often, we see students telling us that they search categories. So I'm searching liberal arts schools, or I'm searching, R1 research universities. But the other thing to keep in mind is that they don't just search on Google. Once they come to your site, no matter how intuitively you've done your architecture, they're also searching on your site. So all of this on-page and keyword placement stuff we've talked about for optimization is also going to help the effectiveness of your internal search tool. It won't fix your internal search tool if it's not terribly well configured, but it will at least make the results make a little bit more sense. So, other things to think about. What do you want to be known for? We talked about Swarthmore wanting to be known as a values-focused liberal arts institution that has an engineering program. We talked about maybe, wanting to be known as a public interest law school. That's where you start your keyword compilation. You want to pay special attention to landing pages and program pages because, again, that seems to be what people are searching for. So you want to make sure, all of your majors, all of the pages describing your majors in things like study abroad, undergraduate research, internships, co-op programs, special programs like that, all of that, if you can't optimize your whole site, start with that stuff, the main landing pages and then the key features of your site. Don't forget that page titles and meta descriptions help in turtle search. And then start checking quarterly, go back to or at least annually, go back to your Google analytics and see if it's keyword traffic, if the traffic you're getting matches the keywords that you've been optimizing your site for. And the other thing you might want to think about, again, because one thing we have heard anecdotal reports from students about is they search, they're on the East Coast, they want to live on the West Coast, or they're in the Midwest and they want to head south, or they can't leave New England, and so they want to stay. They're looking for schools in New England. You might want to consider a brief descriptor that sits in the footer of your site that has your geographic location in it, and maybe a reference to the category of institution you are. For instance, Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, might want to say, Miami University, a selective undergraduate-focused public university in Southwestern Ohio. Hopefully, they would not misspell this Southwestern, as it seems I have in my presentation. But you can see that gets at that they're undergraduate focused, that they're a public university, which somebody hearing, Miami and not being in Miami might not necessarily think, and that they're in Southwestern Ohio, so they've got that geographic thing that they're playing with. So I hope I didn't run through that stuff too quickly, and if I did, now is your time to ask questions.
Mark, that was excellent. Thank you so much for that presentation. And we do have some questions for you. So I'm just going to start at the top of the list and work my way down. The first question is actually relating to keywords and how many should you optimize each page for?
I would assign a keyword or two to each page and not more than that. Partly because, again, we want to optimize for both the user, for the visitor to the site, and the search engine. So, for instance, your study abroad page, you want to optimize that for study abroad and maybe learning overseas or study overseas or something like that, and stick to that. What you don't want to do is at the top of, say, your academics page, is stick, okay, I'm going to try to, get, optimize for study abroad and undergraduate research and majors and minors and all of these things, because one thing that does is it makes the optimization of that page too diffuse. So you're basically lowering the overall authority of that page for the, the keywords, any one of the keywords you're trying to use. And then, so if below that page, you've then got a page dedicated to, undergraduate research or study abroad. Now those pages are competing with each other for authority. So instead, if you've got, academics at, again, I keep using Swarthmore because they're a former client of ours, is picking on them, but, if you're using, academics at Swarthmore as, and variations on that as the keyword for the academics landing page, and then letting the study abroad page be about study abroad, and the undergraduate research be about, undergraduate research, and the civic engagement or the service learning being about service learning. It's sticking to a keyword and a couple of synonyms to that keyword and focusing on one keyword per page.
Okay. The next question is about keywords as, sorry, not about keywords, but terms. One of our attendees, or at least one of our attendees, works at a private high school. And so she's wondering if you have any information on what terms prospectives search for when they're looking for private high schools.
What, off the top of my head, no. I mean, the first place I would start is private high school. And, so what are, I would start with, what are the terms that describe my institution, and I don't know if this particular person's private high school is also a boarding school or a day school or a college prep school, so I would start with those terms. And I would go to Google, I would go to the keyword tool in Google, and I would put all of those, variations on that theme. I would plug that in and see what people are, see what it tells me people are searching for, and then see, which of those words are the most competitive, so which are the most paid for. But, so start with the type of institution you are, and then maybe the things you want to be known for, whether it's, college placements or close student-faculty relationships or, sports and arts opportunities. What are the 2 or 3 things that define you? Come up with a bunch of terms that sort of are related to the category and your defining characteristics, and then plug those into the Google keyword tool to get more synonyms and to figure out, which are the sort of the most searched but least competitive terms, so you can figure out the sweet spot for which ones to use.
So our next question is from one of the attendees. Should we start with on-page or off-page SEO?
I don't know that they're mutually exclusive. As I mentioned, if you are already actively posting videos to Google, for instance, to YouTube, for instance, it's not going to take any additional effort to start including a link to either your homepage or the page of a relevant program in the description of your video. Or to start naming your videos in a way that are, more evocative of what the video is about. You put your institution's name in the title of the video, put a keyword in the title of the video, have a really good description. So, similarly, to think thoughtfully about the titles you're using in your press release and make sure you're posting them, or the things that you're posting to Google, to Facebook. But I would also, I would go and look at the very least, the page titles and metadata of your homepage and all of your primary landing pages. And if that stuff's not, best practice, I would fix that now. So moving forward, start, adding the links to your YouTube videos and Facebook posts, and then go fix the page titles and metadata on your home page and your primary landing pages, and once you get past that, your program pages.
So our last question today, because we are almost at 3 o'clock, comes from Twitter. How do you ensure proper on-page SEO when your organization has dozens of content creators?
The same way, I mean, the thing that occurs to me is to have what's effectively a style guide. So the same way that you've got, a codified way of making sure everybody either does or doesn't use a serial comma and references the name of your institution the proper way, and whether you, in second or third iteration refer to it as the college or the university, capital C or capital U or lowercase u. I would, so you should, if you don't, have a style guide for web writing, and that should include a style guide for, and that style guide should include how to use metadata. So, that's how I would go about enforcing it, is making it, just sort of including the SEO stuff as part of the policies that hopefully already exist for your web content anyway.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Mark, and thanks everyone for attending today's webinar. If we did not get to your question, we'll make sure to address it in the blog post that's going to go up on mstoner.com/blog later this week. When you exit this webinar, please take the very short survey after you log out. That your feedback is extremely important to us and helps us plan for future webinars. And if you are interested, our next webinar is What Do I Say? Content Ideas for Your Social Media Channels. And we'll be providing more information on how to sign up in our next issue of Intelligence. Intelligence is our monthly email newsletter. And if you are interested in signing up for that, you can shoot me an email, mallory.wood@mstoner.com. We can also provide a link to sign up in that blog post that's going up later this week. So thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you, Mark, for that great presentation. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.